First Samuel. We are continuing in First Samuel. We are starting chapter 14 today. And so we're going to go First Samuel 14, 1 through 12. And I want to start with, actually, I'm going to start here. We're going to go and read verse 1. Verse 1. And then I'm going to switch over to a video that I want us to look at. Let's see. So it says, later that day, Jonathan, Saul's son, said to his armor bearer, and this is the Message version, "Come on, let's go over to the Philistine garrison patrol on the other side of the pass." But he didn't tell his father. So again, later that day, Jonathan, Saul's son, said to his armor bearer, "Come on, let's go over to the Philistine garrison patrol on the other side of the pass." But he didn't tell his father. So my first question, and you all can really stay off mute today. My first question is, he starts with saying later that day. What happened earlier that day? What happened earlier that day?
Yeah.
Yeah, Deacon?
No, that's all right. I passed.
All right, come on, somebody. What happened what happened earlier that day?
Well, Saul, well, the Philistines had, well, I don't know if this is all in the same day, so I guess I'll go all the way back, maybe. Jonathan had conquered, he had victory over Gerasene. The Philistines were upset about that, so they created a enormous army, foot soldiers, horsemen, chariots. Saul had a victory lap, I guess, because of Jonathan having victory.
Mm-hmm.
And Samuel was supposed to come in 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. He was just a tad bit late, maybe
Just
on
a
the
tad.
7th day at the
Was he
7th
late?
hour.
Was he late?
Right. Maybe.
Uh-huh.
And Saul took it upon himself to offer a sacrifice, which was against the commandment.
Mm-hmm.
And Samuel told Saul that God had now appointed another king. So Saul was now basically being dethroned. And Saul had about, I guess I should say, Saul had created an army of about 3,000. So Jonathan had 1,000. Saul had 2,000. Now he was down to about 600.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. Does anyone else want to chime in, or should I continue?
No, you're good. Actually, you've hit all the points up to this point, but I'm open to anybody who wants to add anything. That was very thorough. So in essence, everything she just described was earlier that day. Earlier that day. So there was a lot that transpired, and the big portion of that, and the key piece I wanted to hit, was the fact that Saul was disobedient. It was that 7th day, 7th hour, late or not late, that is the thing that made all the difference in the trajectory of Saul's reign as king. And so here's my double down question. So we know that Saul's disobedience was the issue, the fact that he went ahead and did this burnt offering, and he did that because his men were starting to flee. He started off with 3,000, as Nita said, and whittled down to 600. What was the issue with him doing the burnt offering? What was that? What was the issue? What was the problem? Other than he didn't wait.
Well,
Well, he was
he's
supposed
not
to,
a priest. Go ahead, Deacon.
he was supposed to wait until Samuel did the offering. I mean, did the sacrifice and the burnt offering first. So he went ahead of himself because I think Samuel was coming and he couldn't wait.
Mm-hmm. So why did he need to wait for Samuel specifically to do the burnt offering?
Because he was the head, I believe the head priest, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And
He's
usually
priest and
before you
apostle.
go out to battle, you have to get that blessing first.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So Saul created, I mean, he basically sinned because he stepped outside of what was his responsibility. Kings were not supposed to do the acts of priests. Priests were not supposed to do the acts of kings. And so that was an outright sin, in addition to the fact that he didn't wait. And because he chose not to wait, he ended up doing something he was not supposed to do. And therein lied the error of his ways. What do we know about Jonathan? What do we know about Jonathan? When is the first time we hear about Jonathan? When is the first time we hear?
Is that back when he went out with the, let me see, he went out with that 1,000 men and he came back. And I think his father got a little bit upset.
Mm-hmm.
But his father took the glory out of that, you see.
Yeah, so 1 Samuel 13 verses 1 and 2 is the first time we hear of Jonathan. We hear a lot about Jonathan because we talk about him with King David and him being his right-hand man, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. So this is the first time we hear about Jonathan. What do we know about him? Just in this little bit that we've seen, Colin, in the last chapter and the start of this one. What do we know about Jonathan? Other than he's Saul's son, in the future he'll be the kind of the right hand and the great friend to David. What else do we know about him? What can we ascertain about him?
He believed all things were possible with God. You didn't need all those soldiers because when he went out, he got the victory that first time. Yeah.
Okay. What else? Good.
He was brave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why do you say he was brave, though?
Because of his actions, even though I do believe that he was relying on God, but he had to have the faith and the bravery, the character to go out and do the things. Well, to go out and fight the army, the Philistines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. We're going to put a pin in that thought. Second thing, anybody else? What do we know about Jonathan?
Well, it's not in the verse, but his name means Jehovah has given.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Okay, so we've talked later that day. We've talked Jonathan, armor bearers. What do we know about armor bearers? How do we define armor bearers back then versus how we define them today? So when you hear the term armor bearer or you see someone acting as an armor bearer, what is their role?
Back then they were carrying the shield and the swords for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yolanda, what else?
First, not per se, protection, security.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Today or back then?
Covering, I think both. Like you say, they carried the sword and stuff for them, but they were still as a protector of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Anybody else?
Back then, I think they also assisted in managing the army with the officer.
Yep, so they help with the administration as well. Exactly. So the armor bearer is an important person to have. This is somebody that you absolutely need to have around you. Now let's fast forward here. So at the end of this verse, and again, this is the Message Bible version you're seeing on the screen. But he didn't tell his father. Why didn't Jonathan tell his father? Because at this point, Jonathan, this will be the second time that Jonathan has attacked the Philistines, because first time he attacked them was in 1 Samuel 13, 3-4. So now, later that day, he is going to attack them again. But why didn't he tell his father? And it's not going to tell you outright, so you gotta kind of dig a little deeper for this one. What do we think? Watsika, you got something for me?
No, ma'am.
The sad part is I knew your face as soon as I asked you that question.
You said, why didn't he tell his father?
Yeah, why didn't he tell his father? Because he just said to his armor bearer, "Hey, let's go. Let's go over to the Philistines and see what we can do here." But he didn't tell his father. Why?
Because his father may have tried to stop him from going. But I think Jonathan is sort of like a part of David. He was a man after God's own heart too. So he just got up and went and did it with God, with his faith. And I don't think Saul had enough, his father didn't have enough faith. But after that first victory, Jonathan just said, I'm going ahead, I'm gonna do this and let God get the glory out of this.
Okay. Anybody else?
I also think that I don't know if I guess I'm thinking about Saul's countenance after he's been told by Samuel, the priest whose word is not doesn't come void, that he's been dethroned. I think maybe Saul's countenance was as such that Jonathan didn't even think it was the best to tell him. He was maybe trying to protect his father, like, let me just go and see what God does. And, and then that way his father's not responsible, so to speak. Jonathan is taking it upon himself to let's just go and see what God will do. So yeah, I think maybe Jonathan just saw his countenance, even if he didn't know what Samuel had told him or had told his father, he could just see something on him that he felt defeated.
Okay. All right. Let me see who I have on the line here. Angela, you're on the phone. Never mind. You probably can't. Watsika, do you mind reading something for me, please? 1 Samuel 13, verses 1-4.
Wait a minute, I ran in the kitchen. What did you say?
1 Samuel.
Wait a minute.
I was trying to get, I didn't give you enough.
I heard my name. Oh shoot. Wait a minute. Okay, first, because I ain't even there.
1 Samuel 13.
Okay.
Verses 1-4.
Okay. Why you mess with me today?
I'm not.
Okay, all right, wait a minute. Because I got these contacts on, so bear with me.
Oh, I know the feeling. Okay.
Okay, let's say. Okay, all right. Saul was 30 years, is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Saul was 30 years old when he became king, and he resigned over Israel 42 years. So, Saul chose 3,000 men from Israel. 2,000 were with him at, what is it,
Michmash.
and in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan at Gilbreth, and Benjamin. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Benjamin. The rest of the men he sent back to their homes. Jonathan attacked the Philistines' outpost at Gibeah, and the Philistines heard about it. Then Saul had the trumpets blown throughout the land and said, let the Hebrews hear. So all Israel heard the news. Saul has attacked. Saul has attacked the Philistines' outpost, and now Israel has become obnoxious to the Philistines, and the people were summoned to join Saul at Gilgal. Gilgal. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
about my fourth grade reading, y'all.
No, it's all good. Okay, so you just read the answer. Why did Jonathan not tell his father?
I'm reading, but I ain't comprehending nothing. I don't know.
So verse
Christian.
3, what's the first sentence of verse 3?
Jonathan
Jonathan
attacked the
attacked-
Philistines' outpost at Gibeah, and the Philistines heard about it.
Yep.
You said
Now
the
go
first
down to
one?
verse 4.
Okay, and then let me see. So all Israel heard the news. Saul has attacked the Philistines' outpost.
Stop.
So when all Israel heard the news, Saul has attacked the Philistine outpost. You told
So
me to
verse
stop.
3 said who attacked?
Verse 3 said the Philistine. Let me see. Saul had attacked the trumpet. Philistine. Well,
Who attacked? First two words.
Philistine
Nope, first two
a
words of
minute.
verse 3.
outpost at Gibeah, and the Philistines heard it. Then Saul. You said the first three words.
Of,
Jonathan
of verse 3. Jonathan attacked.
attacked. Right.
But in
The
verse
Philistines.
4, it says Saul has attacked.
Oh yeah. Okay. Right. That's
Mhm,
right. You're right.
mhm,
That's what it
mhm.
says. I'm
That's
sorry.
what it says.
Yeah.
No.
Mm.
So why didn't he tell his father?
Philistines
Because do we
attacked.
think this is the first time that has happened? What happened here? What happened? Who took the credit?
Oh, I guess
His
God.
father.
Well, father did.
Yes,
Oh,
Saul. Saul
okay.
took the credit. It wasn't his doing,
Yeah.
but Saul took the credit for it and
Yeah,
had no problem taking the credit.
Right.
So we're pretty sure this is not the first time that's happened, right? Because this is not Jonathan's first time, managing an army. I'm sure you don't just give somebody 1,000 people and they have not proven themselves at all. So Jonathan probably knew, and we're assuming, right? Just kind of putting pieces together. We're assuming that might be the reason that he didn't tell him, because he knew he wasn't necessarily going to get the credit for it. Now, whether he cares about the credit, we can talk about it in just a few minutes. All right, let's keep moving. All right, verses 2 and 3. Meanwhile, Saul was taking it easy under the pomegranate tree at the threshing floor on the edge of town at Gibeah, also known as Gibeah. There were about 600 men with him. Ahijah, wearing the priestly ephod, was also there. Ahijah was the son of Ahitub, brother of Ichabod, son of Phinehas, who was the son of Eli, the priest of God at Shiloh. No one there knew that Jonathan had gone off. All right, so got some things highlighted here. Pomegranate trees. What was the importance of pomegranate trees in the Bible? Anybody know? You know anything about a pomegranate tree?
They got 1 million seeds.
Yes, they do. How many seeds? How many seeds?
Oh, Jesus.
They got a lot. I know you can't enjoy eating them. I know that.
No, you can. I agree with that.
Mhm.
How many seeds? Aaron should
Oh,
get
wow.
this one because he teaches us this all the time.
Oh, wow.
Correlates to the number of laws, of Jewish laws.
I'm getting it.
Is
I
that
know you are.
612?
613, right?
There it is.
13, okay.
Bam!
All right. I said
613.
612. Okay.
Was close. 613.
You are close. 613. Yeah. So apparently there are 600, which is why you can't eat them well. 613 seeds in the pomegranate.
And one,
Say again.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
All of them? I mean, that amount.
and each
all of
one,
Yep.
them? Okay. You know what
Yep.
I'm going to do, don't you?
I know.
I want to count.
You're
Yes,
not
I
one to
am.
count it.
Yes, I am. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So this pomegranate tree near Gibeah, which is where Saul was sitting, was apparently known. It was a landmark. That was a landmark place to sit. So in general, again, pomegranates typically have 613 seeds. They can get up to 30 feet tall, but more on average, they're about 12 to 18 feet tall. So why was Saul sitting under this pomegranate tree? So Jonathan has taken his armor bearer and said, "Hey, let's go. We got to fight. Like we're not gonna be pumped. We're just gonna go do this thing, and we're not waiting on other people." So why do we think Saul was under that pomegranate tree? Go ahead.
This is probably not symbolic, because I was just reading what it symbolizes. It said in Exodus symbolizes, well, that's not right. Be quiet.
Anybody have some theories?
I guess I just go back to what he had just been told in chapter 13, that Samuel didn't pray, didn't ask God to do anything in relation to the battle that he was getting ready to face. He had just been told that God had appointed another king after his own heart. So I don't know, between fear and confusion, or when I first read it, I was like, now he's sitting and waiting. He didn't wait before, but now he's sitting and waiting. That when I
That's
first read
good.
it.
That's good.
So,
Now you want to wait. Okay. All right. That's good. Anybody else? We don't know the answer. We can speculate, but we really have no idea why he was sitting under that tree. What we know though is that he was not taking action, and Jonathan was. So let's talk about Gibeah. Gibeah is a famous city. What is it known for? What do we remember about Gibeah? Which of the tribes owned that land? That land was given to one of the particular tribes. Do you remember which one? I know Google's hit rates are going
Benjamin,
up dramatically. Uh-huh.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the most prominent one. Yes. It's also mentioned around Judah and Ephraim, but the Gibeah of Benjamin is the most commonly mentioned. Now, what do we know happened? There was two things that happened specifically in Gibeah. Two very popular things back in Judges. Do you all remember? Let's go to Judges 19.
Is that when the concubine?
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop.
No, keep say more. Go ahead. What's the story? And somebody can hop in and help if you don't remember it all.
I think it was I think it was a Benjamite that was going through a country with his concubine.
It was a
And
Levite. It was a Levite.
It was Levi. Okay,
Mhm.
going through a country with his concubine, and was it the Benjamites who actually raped and killed the
Yeah.
concubine?
Yes.
Yes, that's the
Yeah.
story.
Okay.
Yeah. So all of that led to also this battle, Battle of Gibeah as well. So all of that happened, and so Judges 19 through 21 talks about that whole piece there. But that's what Gibeah is really known for, unfortunately. Let's see what else I know about that. Yeah, that's the big stuff that happened in Gibeah. So there were about 600 men with him. We read that earlier. How did Saul get down to 600 men? Just want to make sure we're tying everything together. How did he? Because he started with 3,000 earlier in the day. So now he's down to 600. How did he get to that place?
the fight of,
All right, go back to 1 Samuel 13. This is why we always have to make sure we're reading before and the current, just to make sure we're clear. Verse 2, he started off with 3,000 men. And then after the disobedience, because what was happening? What was the reason that he was disobedient in the first place, at least according to Saul? Why was he disobedient? Come on, you guys know these answers. Why was he disobedient? What was happening that made him move faster than the time he was supposed to?
The Philistine had gathered a massive army.
Mm-hmm. And then what happened? Go ahead, Yolanda. I can't hear you if you're talking.
oh, authority, I'm sorry,
Okay, authority. Say more.
authority,
Say, what does that mean? Say more.
the switching of authority.
Between Saul and
Samuel, I mean
Saul.
Saul. Yes.
Okay, so we have a situation where we have 3,000 soldiers. Then there's this attack that Jonathan attacked, but Saul took credit for it, right? This is all in chapter 13. Saul took credit for it. And then the Philistines got upset, as you would expect, right? They have a whole lot more army. So now the Israelites are afraid. And they're afraid, and now they start to disperse. They're starting to leave. And so if we read verse 8, so I'm back in 1 Samuel 13, verse 8. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So this is how he starts to get down to a few men, because the people became afraid. Yep, they became afraid. And so if you go all the way down to verse 15, I think. 13, you've done a foolish thing, Samuel said. You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure, blah, blah, blah. Then Samuel left Gilgal and went up to Gibeah in Benjamin, and Saul counted the men who were with him. They numbered about 600. Okay, so that's how we got down to this number, because people got afraid, they started to leave. What do we know about Ichabod?
Oh, no glory.
No, that's what his name means. The glory has departed. So the question was, why would they even mention him? I mean, there's a whole lot of names mentioned: Ahijah, Ichabod, Phinehas, Eli. And if you read commentaries, it basically says they mentioned Ichabod because that was the glory has departed, was really the state of Saul in that moment. Because everything that God had declared for Saul, Saul basically blew it up with one act that he should not have done. So that is why Ichabod is mentioned there. No one there knew that Jonathan had gone off. Why do you think that? We know that we assume why Jonathan didn't tell his father, but why do we think that Jonathan didn't tell anybody where he was going? Why do you think nobody knew where he was going?
he didn't want his father to know,
Okay,
like say, or try to stop him, like I was saying earlier,
okay,
because if he knew that, then he would still Saul would be kind of afraid that he'd do the same thing again.
possibly. Okay, any additional perspective?
Did he think that he didn't know who was all connected to Saul, or that he could trust, basically?
Could be.
You felt responsible?
Right.
He felt responsible. Is that what you
Mhm.
said?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any additional perspective? Do we think that Jonathan's character and Saul's character are like? Do they have like character?
I think that Jonathan's character could be equated to Saul's character back in the earlier verses, like when Saul fought the Ammonites.
Mm-hmm.
I think Saul felt God's presence upon him more at that particular time. He wasn't fearful. His experience with God was fresh. So I think at then and now, yes, but now in verse 14, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is another one where we're going to speculate, but in my mind, Jonathan was just about the business of the victory for Israel over the Philistines. So I don't think he was looking for the credit necessarily, which is why he went off and said, hey, let's just go do this thing. And it could be, again, tied back to what we said earlier, is he didn't tell his father because history maybe had shown that his father was going to take credit for it. So he's like, let me just go off and do this. And then there won't be any question because I will have been there by myself. So he could have very well been looking at it like, let me get the credit because I didn't get the credit last time and I was with my father. This time, let me just go off and do what I know to be true. All speculation, all speculation. All right, let's keep going. Verses 4 and 5, the pass that Jonathan was planning to cross over to the Philistine garrison was flanked on either side by sharp rock outcroppings. Cliffs named Bozez, and Sina. The cliff to the north faced Michmash. The cliff to the south faced Gibeah. So if you look at Michmash over here on the right, that is where the Philistines and their garrison, so their troops, that's where they had stationed themselves. Over here on the left, you see Gibeah. That is where Saul and the people and the 600 men sitting under the pomegranate tree are. So you can see there's some place there, but you can see from either direction. It's a long way, but Saul and his men can see from Gibeah all the way over to Michmash and vice versa. And so what Jonathan and his armor bearer decided to do was not go directly across, but to take a path that was not as expected. So in between here, and I'll go to the next, let's see, let me go forward for just a second. In between here, you see this little ridge or valley. It's very rocky, thorny and thorns and rocks that go up either side. So actually Sina, that name means the thorny one. So that one side that was called Sina was named the thorny one. So there's lots of thorns. And then Bozez means the miry one. So that had lots of rocks and things. So it wasn't an easy way to get there. So the fact that he and his armor bearer chose to go that way was unexpected. That was an unexpected way for them to go. Verse 6, Jonathan said to his armor bearer, come on now, let's go across to these uncircumcised pagans. Maybe God will work for us. There's no rule that says God can only deliver by using a big army. No one can stop God from saving when he sets his mind to it. His armor bearer said, go ahead, do what you think best. I'm with you all the way. So, if we compare verse 6 to Gideon and the fleece, what is the difference? So remember the story of Gideon. And Gideon wanted the Lord to basically prove to him that what he said was true. So he's like, okay, God, if this be right, tomorrow morning, let the fleece be dry, the ground be wet. And then when the Lord did that, he's like, okay, let's just check one more time. This time, let's let the fleece be wet and the ground be dry. And then I'll know what you say is true. Okay. So as you know that story and compare it to what we just read in verse 6, what's the core difference? What's the difference?
That's a good one, Christy. I think the difference is God had already proven, but he fleeced him and wanted confirmation. With Jonathan, that wasn't the case.
Okay. Say just a little bit more about the Jonathan piece.
Jonathan, he flat out said, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. I mean, let's go. He didn't say, God, this and that, show me, I need proof. And then God shows you proof, and then you go back and ask for more proof.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan didn't do that.
Nope.
Jonathan did not know. He didn't even have proof. He just did it. He said, this is what I believe. We're going to move forward. And that's it. God ain't gave me no proof of it or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
So
so
that
that to me, that's the big difference, in my opinion.
That's a huge difference. Anybody else?
That's why I was saying back before, he and David, they had somewhat similar values about God. So David would get up and go, see? So he had faith in God. Because see, when you're talking about their God or going against their God, that's why Jonathan and David were so close, that they were blood brothers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? That's good. All right, let's keep going. All right, so 8 through 12, Jonathan said, here's what we'll do. We'll cross over the pass and let the men see we're there. If they say halt, don't move up until we check you out. We'll stay put and not go up. But if they say, come on up, we'll go right up and we'll know God has given them to us. That will be our sign. So to your point, Aaron, he made his sign, right? He's like, look, this is what we're going to do. I have a plan. I have a strategy and I'm ready to take action. I always tell people at work, I'm in this new role at work, and I want to make sure that they're very clear. I have a bias for action. I don't like a lot of meetings. I don't like a lot of contemplating. Like, we can talk, but ultimately, what are we doing? And this is very much Jonathan. He's like, here's our plan. And his armor bearer has already said, I'm with you. Wherever you go, like, I got you. And so he said, that will be our sign. So he was actually kind of putting a demand on God to say, God, I'm moving forward and I'm believing that you can do this. You don't need a big army. We had 3,000. We won with 3,000, but you don't need 3,000. We have 600 men left. We could win with 600, but guess what? There's just 2 of us. You can do that too. Because that's all there were, is 2 of them. So they did it, the 2 of them. They stepped into the open where they could be seen by the Philistine garrison. The Philistines shouted out, look at that. The Hebrews are crawling out of their holes. Then they yelled down to Jonathan and his armor bearer, come on up here. We've got a thing or two to show you. So we're not going to fast forward to what's happened. That'll be for next week. But that's the key piece here, is Jonathan had a bias for action, but he also had faith. And those 2 things combined is what allowed him to do what they did in the upcoming verses. I'm going to pause there and ask if there are any questions, because that is as far as mine goes for this week. What questions or insights do you have based on what we talked today? And great participation. Thank you all very much.
Not so much as question, it's just that, again, this really ties into, what Nita talked about last week. Waiting, listening to God, hear his word.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go on our own.
And I think there's a fine balance, right?
Yeah.
Because there is there's a mindset of people who say, I'm still waiting on the Lord. I'm just waiting for the Lord, which drives me mad, just FYI. And then there's people who are waiting with action. Because I think you can do both things. You can wait and not move at all. And you will not accomplish anything, no matter what God is telling you to do. Because sometimes the answer comes in your forward momentum.
Mhm.
And those who choose to just wait, and you're waiting for God to just put that fleece right in front of me. I'm not going to move now. I'm not going to, the fleece is not in the house. The fleece is outside, but I'm just going to wait for you to bring the fleece in the door. I'm going to sit right here in this chair and I'm just going to wait. You're not going to get what God has intended for you. So I think there's this balance. I again, with my bias to action, I kind of like Jonathan's style of I'm moving forward in faith that God is going to show up as I am moving. And I think there's that fine balance between the waiting and praying that some people do. And I think there's a place for that as well. And moving with faith.
I think that's so true, because you have to have some type of action, some type of searching for what the Lord may have for you. But if you just sit there, God's not going to disappoint you. Well, okay, I want to do this. I want to do that. Well, try and if the Holy Spirit's behind you to do something, then God will let you know. The Spirit will let you know, well, okay, that's not what I want you to do. But you'll find out what God wants you to do if you just follow and see what to do and take some action.
Mm-hmm. The action is important. I as you're saying that, Deacon, it makes me think about, and I'm sure most people on here have been a part of more than one church. We've because of our moves and whatever, we've been a part of a lot of churches. And we figure out what we enjoy doing and what we are equipped to do based on serving. And I have served in a lot of roles that were not my cup of tea, but I didn't know they weren't my cup of tea until I started serving. And then God further revealed, oh, actually, no, this is where I want you to be. But it came from serving. And so if there are people who are just sitting there waiting, like, I don't really know what I want to do, I don't know how I'm supposed to serve, well, you just start. You just start serving somewhere. And then God opens the door to what it is that you should be doing, because your gifts will show up, your talents will show up, and people will see where you need to be, and God will point you where you need to be. So I think that's good. Other perspectives? All right, very good. So next week we're studying 1 Samuel 14, 13 through 23. And are there any prayer requests? I'm going to stop sharing and we can stop recording. Are there